Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe, Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Nobody ever really notices the man beneath the city. Not the mayor, not the families taking selfies of the fountains, and definitely not my wife. To her, I was just Russell Kane, the guy who fixes pipes. What she didn't realize was I didn't just fix the pipes. I controlled them. Every valve, every sealed-off tunnel, every inch of pressurized steel that ran beneath the streets of Maplebrook. I knew the city better than it knew itself. And that's how I caught her. I hadn't slept in 2 nights. Something had been gnawing at me ever since my best friend Brian started showing up a little too often. His laugh echoed through our kitchen, even when I wasn't there. And my wife, Jenna, had been checking her phone like it was a life raft, always smiling, always turning away when I walked in. So I did what I do best. I listened. At exactly 3:58 a.m., I slid out of bed without a sound. Jenna murmured something in her sleep. I paused just long enough to confirm she was out cold, then crept into the crawl space beneath the living room floor, silent as a whisper in a pipe. It took me 15 minutes to install the micro camera. By 4:13, I had a live feed pointed straight at the couch. The same place where she once told me she'd never lie to me. The same place I had watched from the window yesterday, as Brian brushed her hair behind her ear like it was his to touch. I sealed the crawl space and climbed back upstairs. "Where'd you go?" she mumbled as I slid in a bed beside her. "Bathroom," I whispered. She turned away and her breathing evened out. I stared at the ceiling for hours, blinking through calculations. Not love, not memories, measurements, pressure values, stress tolerances, weak points. The very things I've been hired to monitor in the city's underground infrastructure were the same principles that were now guiding my marriage. Except this wasn't a leak. It was a rupture, and it was about to blow wide open. The next day, Jenna texted that she'd be working late at the salon, but her shop closed at 6 o'clock. Always had. At 8:17 p.m., the living room camera lit up. Brian stepped inside first. He was laughing. Jenna followed him in, heels clicking like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't walking over our vows with every step. She poured him wine. My wine. The one I've been saving for our 10-year anniversary. I watched through the live feed as she sat beside him, curled up like it was their home. "Russell barely notices anything anymore," she said, sipping from the glass. Brian smirked. "You married a ghost and overalls. What did you expect?" I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I just reached into my jacket and pulled out my small leather notebook, the one I kept for maintaining schedules. Only this time, I was writing something new. Phase 1, confirmation complete. Phase 2, destruction in progress. I had no intention of confronting them yet. That would be too easy. They thought I was clueless, boring, predictable. They had no idea I'd been quietly building something beneath their lives for 10 years. And now I was going to weaponize every inch of it. By morning, I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a system, a mechanism, a machine designed with one purpose: to tear down the lies that had taken root inside my home. While Jenna packed her bag for her girls' weekend, I stood in the kitchen pretending to sip coffee. Her back was to me. I studied the way she moved, careless, confident, as if the truth was something that would never catch up to her. I kissed her cheek as she left. She didn't flinch. That hurt more than I expected. As her taillights disappeared down the street, I turned and walked into my home office. I didn't cry. I calibrated. I worked for the Maplebrook Department of Water Infrastructure. What most people didn't know is we had access codes to tunnels that ran beneath every district. There were old sewer projects, abandoned underground filtration rooms, even a fully sealed command center that hadn't been accessed since 1992. They assigned me to that project years ago. I never told anyone I still had the keys. It was my sanctuary now. By noon, I moved a desk, 3 monitors, and a secure line into the old bunker room beneath the Eastwood Park Reservoir. I even ran a signal booster to a nearby maintenance panel so I could tap into city Wi-Fi without leaving digital footprints. My workstation was invisible, cold, and perfect, and the first thing I uploaded every second of footage from the previous night. There they were, Brian and Jenna, their voices echoing in my headphones like ghosts. Jenna, I don't even feel guilty anymore. Brian, you shouldn't. He doesn't give you anything. Jenna, he gives me a house, but no attention. Brian, then let me give you everything he doesn't. I paused the video. If they wanted to dismantle me, they should have chosen someone who didn't know how systems worked. Someone who didn't know that even the most delicate valve, once breached, can take down an entire city block. But I wasn't that someone. I needed more than emotion. I needed leverage, and I knew where to get it. Her finances. I hired a private investigator named Monica Vance, a former IRS forensic auditor. If Jenna had been moving money, Monica would find it. And she did fast. Turns out Jenna wasn't just cheating on me. She was bleeding our joint account into a hidden debit card under a fake business name. JK Wellness Products. Fake business, real charges, dinners, hotel rooms, jewelry, all of it for him. At the same time, I started watching Brian more closely through a contact at City Hall, Victor Clemens, who owed me a favor. I accessed Brian's city contractor badge logs. Turns out Brian had been clocking in on projects that didn't exist. Thousands of dollars and hours billed to fake job sites. And worse, he'd used my old credentials to authorize them. That was fraud. That was jail. And that was my ticket to Phase 3. I didn't want to destroy them just because they hurt me. I want to make sure they never did this to anyone else again. So, I called a woman I hadn't spoken to in nearly 7 years. Claire Benson, Jenna's former best friend. They'd stopped speaking after some messy fallout involving a family trip and an argument about money. But I remember Claire had once said, if Jenna ever turns on, you call me. I'll have stories. She wasn't kidding. Claire spilled everything. She cheated on her last fiancé, too. She told me over the phone. That's why her parents didn't come to your wedding. They knew. Suddenly, it wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about history. This was who she was. The next night, I watched the live feed again. Jenna and Brian sat on my couch, sipping wine like they owned the place. I just keep thinking about what life would be like if you were gone. Jenna said almost too casually. Brian didn't flinch. Russell works underground. All those tunnels. One accident and poof. You're free. I leaned closer to the screen. My pulse slowed. Not from fear, but focus. That was it. They crossed a line they couldn't walk back from, and I was already on the other side. The morning after I heard them discuss my accidental death, I didn't go to work. I went deeper underground, deeper into the archives, deeper into who I was becoming. In the maintenance tunnel beneath Ashton Avenue, I used my secondary access to reach a sealed records cabinet only I knew existed. Inside were physical blueprints of the city's water systems, bypass schematics, and pressure overflow zones. I didn't need to sabotage anything. Just the threat that I could was enough. I copied it all. Then I opened a brand new folder on my secure drive labeled Contingency Kane Protocol. A fail-safe. Not for them, for me. Because when people lie about love, they'll lie about anything. And if I went down, I'd take every last corrupt name with me. I wanted to watch them panic. Not just because of what they did to me, but because of who they were when no one was watching. That's the thing about betrayal. It's never an isolated incident. It's a pattern. And I was connecting the dots. Later that day, Claire called again. I talked to an old friend of Jenna's. She said, apparently, she and Brian once talked about opening a life insurance investment company. It didn't go anywhere, but they were obsessed with payout loopholes. I didn't need to hear more. They'd already fantasized about my death. Now, they were trying to find the terms. I opened my HR portal for the city. Life insurance policy, $600,000. Beneficiary, Jenna Kane. I clicked Change Beneficiary. New name, Rachel Maddox. My sister, the only family I had left who hadn't turned on me. Now, if anything happened to me, Jenna would get nothing. I went back to the footage that evening just in time. Jenna and Brian were in the kitchen. He was leaned against the counter while she scrolled through her phone. You sure you erased the security cams? He asked. She nodded. He never even checks them. She was wrong. I'd built them. I monitored them from 2 separate networks, one public, one private. Then she said something that shifted everything. I don't think we need to wait much longer. Brian raised an eyebrow. You mean for the insurance or the house? Both. My throat dried. This wasn't just cheating. It wasn't even just betrayal. It was premeditation. She wanted my life gutted like a foreclosure. And Brian, he just wanted to move in and pretend he'd always belonged there. But he didn't. I built that house, that system, that life. And I was going to dismantle it right in front of them. One wrench turn at a time. The final piece came from Monica, my private investigator. Russ, she said, you need to see this. She handed me a folder at a diner on the west end of town. Inside were financial records, emails, and texts between Jenna and a real estate agent in Chicago. She's trying to list your house behind your back, Monica said as a fake POA. She was going to forge your signature this Friday. That's when I felt it. The break like a pressurized pipe that finally cracked open under the weight of hidden pressure. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was activated. I called a lawyer that night, a sharp one, Darian Bell, known for scorched earth divorce cases. He didn't ask why I was calling at 2 a.m. He just listened, took notes, and said, let's burn it all down. Legally, of course. He filed everything the next morning. Divorce papers, emergency restraining orders, injunctions to freeze our assets, and a motion to remove her from the property. We also filed a civil fraud claim. By the time Jenna got home, I was waiting in the driveway. Calm, steady, she stepped out her car and blinked. What are you doing here serving you? I said, handing her the envelope with everything you never thought I'd figure out. She opened it, and the moment she read the words fraud, adultery, attempted conspiracy, her face collapsed. What? What is this? You want to call a lawyer? I said, and Brian, he'll need one too. She stumbled, tried to grab my arm. Russell, please. Let's talk. You don't have to do this. I stepped back. You already did. And I turned away as she broke down on the pavement. Because now we weren't just heading for divorce. We were heading into courtroom war. Monday, courthouse, 9 a.m. I wore the same suit I wore to my wedding. Not out of sentiment, but as a quiet message. This is what you ruined, and now it's what I'll bury you in. Jenna sat across from me, stiff in her seat, her hair overly styled to distract from the panic behind her eyes. Brian was nowhere to be seen, probably too cowardly to face the storm he helped create. Her attorney, a smug man in a $1,000 suit named Greg Shields, gave me a weak nod, expecting me to fold like most do in messy divorces. But I didn't come here with hope. I came here with evidence. Judge Caroline Marks entered the courtroom. Sharp as a razor and allergic to drama, she called a room to order with a voice that cut through lies like wire through old pipe. This is the dissolution of marriage between Russell Kane and Jenna Kane. She began looking between us. Mr. Kane, you're filing under grounds of adultery, financial misconduct, and malicious intent. Do you have documentation to support these claims? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. All of it. What followed was 45 minutes of slow, devastating revelation. First, the footage, security recordings from my home, every whisper, every touch, every plot. Then the audio files collected over weeks from events, the kitchen, the garage, Jenna's voice. If something were to happen to Russell, it's not like they'd suspect us. Brian's voice. He works underground. Accidents happen all the time. The courtroom was silent. Even Greg Shields stopped objecting. Then came the bank records. I displayed transfers made from our joint account to a shell company, receipts for hotels, expensive dinners, and luxury watches, none of which I'd ever seen. Followed by Monica's report detailing Jenna's attempt to sell our house with forged documents. And finally, the kicker, a printed life insurance policy with Jenna listed as sole beneficiary in a sworn affidavit that I had changed the beneficiary a week earlier. Your Honor leaned forward. Mrs. Kane, do you have anything to say in your defense? Jenna stood slowly. Her voice trembled. I made mistakes. I was scared, lost, but I never meant to hurt him. We were distant. I didn't feel seen. I spoke without rising. Affairs don't start because someone feels unseen. They start when someone decides they deserve more than what they're willing to build. She wasn't lost, Your Honor. She was deliberate. Then Jenna's attorney dropped a final card. My client is pregnant, he said with forced calm. She is requesting a delay in proceedings and financial consideration in support of the unborn child believed to be Mr. Kane's. I didn't flinch. I reached into my folder and handed a sealed envelope to the bailiff. Your Honor, This is a paternity test ordered last week when the claim was made. The child is not mine. Jenna gasped. I didn't look at her. Judge Marks opened the document, scanned it, and nodded grimly. Noted. Greg Shields sat down hard. The ruling came quickly after that. Judge Marks's voice was a scalpel. Due to overwhelming evidence of adultery, financial misconduct, and emotional manipulation, I am granting the divorce. Mr. Kane will retain full rights to the marital home and all assets in question. Mrs. Kane will receive no alimony, no financial support, and is hereby barred from accessing any shared accounts. Further, her attempt to fraudulently sell property and falsified documents will be referred to the district attorney for review. Then she added, and should Mr. Hull choose to appear in court, he may face conspiracy charges based on the audio testimony provided. The gavel came down like thunder. It was done. I walked out of the courtroom without looking back, but Jenna called after me. Russell, please, you can't leave me like this. I stopped only once. You left me in our home, in our bed, in our future. This is just the invoice. She didn't follow me. She just sank in her seat like a crumbling wall. That night, I stood alone in the tunnel system beneath Maple Brook. I lit a single match in the darkness and watched the flame flicker. Not for drama, for closure. I let it burn out between my fingers. Then I smiled. I hadn't just survived their betrayal. I'd engineered their downfall. 2 weeks later, I was back in the tunnels my domain. My command center beneath Eastwood Park had become more than just a war room. It was a monument, not to vengeance, but to clarity. Down here, among the concrete and valves, I finally understood who I was without her, and more importantly, who I'd been all along. Above me, the city thrived, lights glowing, water flowing. Nobody knew the chaos that had simmered just beneath their sidewalks. Nobody knew how close one man had come to being erased just for being quiet, consistent, and inconvenient. But I was still here, and they weren't. Brian showed up late one night, just as I knew he would. He came through the side of the tunnel like a man looking for a ghost. Disheveled, thin, bitter. The smugness had drained from him like water through a cracked pipe. You ruined my life, he said. I didn't stand. I just watched him from behind my desk. You ruined your life. I replied. You could have just walked away, filed for divorce, left quietly, but you had to destroy everything. You had to make it theatrical. I didn't make it theatrical. I said voice level. You did the moment you started rehearsing my eulogy. He flinched. That was just talk. You know that. No, I said I don't know that. And neither does the state prosecutor. His mouth tightened. She lost everything. The house, the salon. She's living in a rental above a nail parlor. She lost everything. I repeated because she gambled everything and bet against me. He took a step forward. You know what your problem is, Russell. You're cold. You're calculated. You treat people like blueprints. Something to design, control, fix. No wonder she cheated on you. You're not a man. You're a machine. I slowly stood. And yet here you are beaten by a machine. He lunged, but I was faster. I twisted his wrist, slammed him against the concrete wall, and held him there tight enough to make him remember every mistake, but loose enough to leave no marks. You walk into this tunnel again, I whispered, and you won't crawl back out. Not because I'll hurt you, but because I'll call the cops while trespassing, assault, and violate your restraining order so hard. You'll be lucky if you can mop floors for a living. He thrashed once, then stopped. I released him. He stumbled back, breathing hard. You'll never trust anyone again, he said, panting. You'll die alone. You'll rot down here with your wires and your monitors and your revenge, and no one will even care. He was right about one thing. I wouldn't trust anyone again. But I was fine with that, because people are systems and systems break. He left, cursing under his breath. I returned to my desk, clicked the terminal, and finalized my report to the City Infrastructure Board. All systems operational, no pressure imbalances, no leaks. Then I clicked over to a different folder, one labeled Redemption. Inside were new plans. Not for revenge, for rebuilding, not relationships, not love, just myself. I moved out of that house 3 weeks later. Sold it for just enough to cover the legal fees. Donated what was left from the settlement to a scholarship fund for kids who lost parents to fraud or violence. I never told anyone why. I just signed a check and walked away. Jenna tried to contact me once through a mutual friend. She'd had the baby. Brian was gone. She wanted to meet. I declined because the man she married was gone, too. She just hadn't buried him properly. Now I live alone. New place, no history, no cameras, just peace. People sometimes ask why I still work in the water department. I could have retired early after the lawsuit settlement and whistleblower reward. But I stay because there's comfort in pressure, in flow, in knowing that what can break has a system watching it, measuring, containing, and adjusting before catastrophe hits. They call it boring. I call it control. So the next time you turn your tap and hear the soft rush of water, remember there's someone down there who knows every inch of your system. And if you lie to him, if you betray him, he'll hear it and he'll answer.